All right, let's talk Las Vegas Raiders. This is a Raiders team that's obviously made a ton of massive moves so far this entire offseason. Coaching staff, front office, player additions, re-signings, trades, you name it, the Raiders have done it to make this franchise a much better one, to get back to winning. And now the Raiders have made a move a lot of people are waiting for, involving the most important position on the field. That's the quarterback position. We're starting to get some details of a really smart strategy by the Raiders. We'll break it down in just 1 second. But first, I'm Nick, that's Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. As everyone should know, the Raiders traded for Geno Smith much earlier this offseason, and there were negotiations immediately about extending Geno Smith. He's going into the final year of his deal, or he was going into the final year of his deal. The Raiders, as of Thursday evening, have extended Geno Smith. Let's get into the report, then we'll break down all the numbers on the other side. This is a really nice job by the Las Vegas front office. First, the reports. This is courtesy of Ian Rappaport. The Raiders and quarterback Geno Smith have agreed to terms on a new deal to better compensate him for his play after the blockbuster trade. And the follow-up tweet said it's a 2-year, $85.5 million max value extension with 66.5 guaranteed for Geno Smith. It's effectively a 2-year, $75 million extension. When you really get into the details, that 85.5 is if he hits every single possible incentive, which is like going to the Super Bowl and things like that, which would be awesome, right? No one would complain if he hits every incentive. It's just realistically, no one hits them all. So we just look at it from a base perspective, 2 year, $75.5 million extension. So now let's dive into the numbers here. Let's go into our first chart here. I think it's very interesting. This is Geno Smith, his ranking, combining the average of the last two seasons, 2023 and 2024, as his quarterback passing grade, according to the folks over at Pro Football Focus, PFF, and his new APY due to this extension. You can see his APY all the way on the right there is at 16, dead middle, right? He has the 16th highest APY among all quarterbacks in the NFL, right in the middle of the pack. However, his PFF ranking grade, again, average between 2023 and 2024, top 10, number 8 in the NFL. So the Raiders here, really nice job. They paid average quarterback pricing, or I should say, number 16, we'll say top 20 quarterback pricing for top 10 quarterback performance. Really good job by SpyTech and the Raiders just based on that alone. But let's go a little deeper here. Let's compare Geno Smith with his cohorts. And let's look at the four guys that make roughly the same amount of money, or three guys, excuse me, that make roughly the same amount of money with Geno Smith's new APY. We're looking at Geno Smith, Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, and Sam Darnold. You can see all four of them on the screen there. Smith, Carr, Mayfield, Darnold working left to right. Again, all around that $35 million range. Smith and Carr a little bit more, Mayfield and Darnold a little bit less. Okay, same bucket of money, or same general region of money in terms of what these guys count against the cap on an annualized basis. Now let's go into performance with these same four guys here. This is our final graph here. Again, this is courtesy of PFF, and this is the average over the past two seasons. The one exception is Derek Carr's number because he missed the majority of last season, or a large chunk of last season, I should say. He didn't qualify for PFF's 2024 numbers, so this is just Derek Carr's 2023 numbers. But you can see Geno Smith is the only guy who averaged above 80. That is a key threshold. 70s is a good player, is a Pro Bowl caliber player, a really nice quarterback. Once you get into the 80s, that's really good stuff. That's taking you to playoffs, multiple playoff victories. That's a true franchise grade if you look at the numbers there. Derek Carr, Mayfield, Darnold, all these guys are good, solid quarterbacks. Darnold, of course, coming off a career year, now with Seattle Seahawks replacing Geno Smith. But it's clear that Smith's PFF grade is, and his overall performance, the data, the raw analytics, not opinions, the data says that Geno Smith is 4 or 5 points better on average. That's a big, big leap than the guys making the same amount of money of him at the quarterback position. So let's wrap this up here. Let's put a ball on this. So the Raiders got a top 10 quarterback performer at top 16 price. At 16 prices, great job by the Raiders front office. And based on the numbers they paid him, they got a player in Geno Smith who is much better than everyone else who's making the same amount of money. Again, great job by the Raiders front office. The deal itself, third round pick, was a really solid deal. We've seen this entire offseason for the Raiders. They're looking to stabilize this franchise, bring in winners, bring in competitors, guys who know how to win games, whether it's Carroll, SpyTech, Brady getting involved. A lot of their offseason additions, you look at, of course, Raheem Mostert, you look at Landon Roberts, guys that have won Super Bowls, bringing them into the fold, guys who have been to Super Bowls, of course. This is a team that's dedicated to winning now across the board. And this move right here, Geno Smith, the deal they got him to agree to is just so perfect for the Raiders. It opens up a lot of opportunities for them going forward while also giving them a lot of value. Great deal here by the Raiders front office. All right, Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this, but Raider Nation, you guys first in the comment section below. Now that you know the details of Geno Smith's extension, how do you grade the overall deal here when you factor in the draft pick and now the salary cap you're going to give up? Now that everything's pretty much been set in stone, how would you grade the overall deal? You gave a third round pick, and we now know the money in terms of the contract. Do you still give it an A? I know a lot of you guys like it. You still kind of wait and see, maybe to see. Maybe you're one of the few that hate it. Give it an F. Whatever it is, grade this whole acquisition now that we know all the details in the comment section below. But Miles, what are your thoughts on this latest news out of Las Vegas?
Yeah, I think when you put the numbers to it, obviously everyone thought this. Well, I say everyone. Most people thought this was a good get to begin with. But when you put the money down, when you spread it all out, when you look at the numbers on paper, it's great when you have a good feeling about a deal. But then someone dives into it and it's a good deal on paper. It's a good move on paper. It just makes you feel a lot better about the situation because there are things that seem like good moves in the beginning, but then you look at it in retrospect, you look on paper, and it's not that great. One comes to mind is another guy that's in that kind of, money range and play range that he's in. But Kirk Cousins, when he went to Atlanta Falcons, initially felt like a great move for the Falcons. But put everything on paper, you start to see now the Falcons, they're in cap hell a little bit with all of the money that they have to deal with, jumping over their hurdles. No one takes that trade. The play on the field wasn't great for Kirk Cousins. It was disappointing, I would say, at best. It just feels like something like that can go downhill really quickly. But already starting off really well with Geno Smith and the Raiders, it shows this good player, Geno Smith, did a lot of great things. I think he's a solid quarterback in this league. I think he's above average quarterback in this league. But now you see his deal and you see, hey, we actually got him for a bargain. We got him for that mid-tier top 20, probably about the range of quarterbacks that you want as a starter in that top 20 range. That's the kind of money you got him for, but this is a top 10 guy. This is a guy who does really, really exceptionally well. And I think that is the key here. It feels good to make this move, but now you break it down on paper and it looks good as well. One other thing I think is really interesting when you look at the grades and you look at some of these other guys you were speaking about, they kind of like grade around Geno Smith, and it looks like, he's above them, but it's a little bit closer. But I think one thing that people need to take into account is when you talk about PFF, when you talk about their quarterback grade, quarterbacks' rushing grades are really highly kind of added in. If you have a quarterback who had a really great like rushing season, it boosts their grades up. That's why you consistently see guys like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson towards the top. And then you look at, guys like Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold had like an 82 rushing grade last year, which I think heavily boosts him up. So I think it's even better than it actually looks because Geno Smith, he kind of carried his grade with his passing ability. He's decent. I think he had like a mid 60s rushing grade last year, but that's not what you need him. You need him to move the ball down the field, spread it out, do that kind of, what he does best, play action, just get the ball down the field. That's Geno Smith in a nutshell. That's what he's really great at. And he carries his weight with that grade alone, just his passing grade. So I think overall, again, really looks good on paper. You start to break it down, it looks even better. This feels like a very good move for the Raiders.
And let's not forget, earlier this offseason, when Geno Smith was still with the Seattle Seahawks, all the reports were that Smith was dead set on getting a $45 million year annualized extension. Same kind of duration, 2 to 3 years, but he wanted $45 million per year. That was a big sticking point. The Seattle Seahawks said that, by the way. After they traded Geno Smith, they said, listen, we couldn't give him $45 million a year. We traded him to another team where he could get that money. But here's the thing, the Raiders didn't even give him that money, right? That's the incredible job by the Raiders front office here. Even if he hits every single incentive, which Raiders fans, you guys would love because that means he's absolutely crushing it, he's still fallen short of that $45 million a year range. If you look at just that base value, he's, very short, 37.5 million annualized versus that 45. We're talking, roughly 15% of a discount based on what Geno Smith and his agent were really going for. Again, that's a really good job by the Raiders front office, that negotiating team, Tom Brady, Pete Carroll, everyone involved getting Geno Smith and his agent to get on board with a much more discounted deal than they originally intended. And when you talk about a winning quarterback, I think that's one of the more underrated aspects of Geno Smith's game. In 2023, the 2023 season, he led the NFL in fourth quarter comebacks and game winning drives. In 2024, he had the same amount of fourth quarter comebacks and just didn't lead the NFL that season. What does that mean? It means he's good in the clutch. The guy's a winner, right? He's had 3 seasons as a starter with the Seattle Seahawks, had winning records 3 straight seasons, right? That's one of the rare things to see in the NFL, unless you're one of the top contenders and you have a stacked roster. The Seahawks are good, don't get me wrong, but it's not like they're the Philadelphia Eagles or something like that, or the Detroit Lions, where they're absolutely stacked. They're a good roster, and with Geno Smith, 3 straight winning seasons. We talked about it all the time this offseason, and we'll continue to hammer it home. Everything the Raiders have done is brought in guys who are clutch, who are winners, who have playoff experience, or in some cases, Super Bowl experience, guys who can execute in the fourth quarter, guys who can win games late in the season. That's what Geno Smith is. Grown-ups, mature guys. The Raiders organization as a whole has dead set themselves on getting back to finding ways to win. For the better part of the last 2 decades, there's a little blip there with Gruden, of course, coming back the second time around. I think they were heading in the right direction, but for the most part, it's been a lot of the Raiders finding ways to lose, finding ways to fall apart, finding ways to not get it done when they had an opportunity. Every single person they brought in this offseason, along with the people they resigned, of course, we know Max Crosby got his mega deal, is 100% dead set on finding ways to win. Guys who know how to win, guys who know how to win early, middle, late, postseason. That's exactly what Las Vegas has done. Geno Smith slides perfectly into that. And now that he's got a team-friendly duel, the Raiders have the cap flexibility to potentially make other moves, whether this offseason or going forward in 2026 and beyond. This is a Raiders organization that quietly has done a really, really nice job across the board. I know they've had good off seasons in the past, but this definitely takes the cake. We'll have to see how it shakes out on Sundays. But again, Raider Nation, you got to give credit to Spytek, Brady, Davis, Carroll, the entire organization, because this is a massive sea change in a matter of months. They've gone from being one of the more disappointing franchises with a great history to a really bright future. Great job once again, Raiders leadership.